Hello and welcome to the LLG Grapevine podcast. You're listening to Helen McGrath, LLG's Executive Director of Policy and Governance, and Dennis Hall, LLG Bulletin Editor.
Hello, everybody.
Well, despite a demand from Dennis that I try and be a bit more cheery for our Christmas edition, I can't promise that throughout, but I will make a very strong attempt for my last segment, whilst Dennis has, I'm sure, fared far better than me. Dennis, Christmas cheer, please.
Well, Helen, but of course. Let's begin. Most major towns and cities have Christmas markets. Those little festive wooden chalets, Glühwein, those German sausages dangling over the counter with a range of strong continental cheeses beneath. Well, you ask, what's local government got to do with all of this? Well, here's the answer. Christmas markets have become an established feature of the UK festive period. No need now to fly off to Frankfurt or Cologne. And local authorities are at the centre of their development, organisation and operation. They can attract jobs, activities and visitors into local economies at a time when the usual visitor economy is less active. While they will not be suited to every area, they can be an effective tool to attracting people to towns and cities if designed correctly. And they've become an established feature of the festive landscape and for quite some time. From an estimated 30 markets in 2007, they have grown to over 100 markets in 2017, with a corresponding increase in the number of days and hours that they're open. They continue to make an increasing contribution to the economic well-being of their locations, with each of those surveyed by the LGA making a positive economic benefit for the host town. And they can be a key tool in the marketing and promotion to increase visitor numbers, allowing the host town to offer that additional attraction and compete more effectively against out-of-town competitors. An LGA report from 2017 looked at markets in Bath, Birmingham, Stratford-upon-Avon, Lincoln and St Albans, and it makes a number of positive points about festive markets, and the arguments in favour are just as important to this day. And briefly, my point is this. Local authorities make these events happen. They're good for the local economy, they bring jobs, they bring about 60% extra visitors, where they will spend money locally on hospitality and other related shopping opportunities. So let's raise a cheer then to those colleagues who are involved in making this important feature of the festive season a positive success for the communities they serve. Helen.
Chin chin, Dennis. Well, of course, local communities need to find ways to make money. And on that theme, on the 6th of December, the Secretary of State, Michael Gove, gave evidence to the Levelling Up Housing and Communities Committee inquiry into financial distress in local authorities. This was reported by the LGA as a lively session. And the committee challenged Michael Gove on the LGA's findings of a survey, which warned that 1 in 5 councils were considering issuing a Section 114 notice this year or next year, as well as their headline figure of councils facing a funding gap of $4 billion over the next 2 years. Now, in response, Michael Gove said he was concerned, stating, quote, "I think it is important to put into context some of the issues that are being raised. It's important to recognise that core spending power has increased, and the amount of money that central government are allocating to local government has increased above inflation. However, it is certainly the case that local government faces significant funding pressures. I met the chairman of the County Councils Network and the vice president of the LGA this morning to discuss this, and their view was that while there's a risk of more local authorities issuing Section 114 notices, the estimate of 1 in 5 was at the toppish end of the scale. Now, in response, the chair of the committee, Mr. Clive Betts, said, well, if it were 1 in 10, it would still be a worry, wouldn't it? To which Mr. Gove conceded yes. On failing councils, Gove said it was absolutely the case that each of the local authorities that have had to issue Section 114 notices has had failures of leadership, management and governance, and some have taken risks that were unmerited. It is also the case, he said, that we're in a situation in which local government, like other parts of the public sector and like government itself, is facing significant pressure. When questioned on financial support for councils, and specifically by Nadia Whittome, who asked, will you give councils the funding that they need to deliver local services, yes or no? Michael Gove said yes, to which Nadia Whittome responded, well, I think the answer to that question will become clearer in the months ahead, which I think is an inevitable truth. When asked about what he would say to local government finance officers, Michael Gove stated, were I a council leader, I would say, let's plan for a more challenging scenario, a slightly better one, and a more helpful one. And within that, we can begin to think about what may be required. So there you are, Dennis. Now, having lost my Christmas cheer somewhat following that item, apologies to all. Local authority financial pressures are also affecting Christmas celebrations, I understand, Dennis. But a Christmas miracle may have occurred.
Yes, indeed. And my next story is also Christmassy. What does a council or a community do if it cannot afford to provide Christmas lights for the festive season? Is it all humbug? Did anyone care enough to do something? Well, here's the story, and I think it will be typical of the problems faced by many councils at this time, and it resonates with your last item, Helen. Town centres across Medway will be decorated with Christmas lights this festive season, thanks to the last-minute donations from 3 private companies who stepped forward just in time to save some Christmas cheer. Due to financial pressures, the local authority had decided not to fund the lights in 5 main town centres this season. The council will face a £38 million budget gap next year, on top of £17 million that it needs to find for this financial year. It was a choice they didn't want to make. However, Norse Group, Marsden Holdings and Volker Highways have joined together to provide financial support to install and cover the costs of running the lights in Chatham, Gillingham, Rochester, Rainham and Strood High Streets. Council spokesman said, I'm incredibly heartened by the generous offer of all 3 companies. That means it is now possible to have Christmas lights in all 5 town centres this Christmas. If you have a similar tale to tell, let us know about it on the LLG forum page. Helen.
Well, how lovely. And all about the Christmas spirit. But let me Grinch it back, however, to the absolutely shocking post office scandal, which frankly, one could take part of the opening line of Dr. Seuss and apply it. Inside a snowflake like the one on your sleeve, there happened a story you must see to believe. Because frankly, the evidence we've heard throughout this inquiry has been unbelievable at times. And now the Gazette reports that last week we learnt 3 former post office solicitors were recommended to be reported to the SRA for their roles in prosecuting sub-postmasters in 2020. Now, this originates from a report by external lawyers from instructed firm Peters and Peters, who stated that the conduct of 3 of the solicitors was capable of amounting to a serious breach of SRA rules, which was due to the nature and number of prosecution cases referred for appeal and a review of material available at the time. The report cited potential issues over inadequate investigation, including a failure to pursue all reasonable lines of inquiry, whether they pointed towards or away from the guilt of the defendants, and a failure to establish that an actual financial loss had occurred in theft cases. The report also found evidence of material non-disclosure, in particular about the reliability of the Post Office Horizon IT system, and inadequate, negligent or improper decision-making in relation to charging decisions. Now, as far as anyone can tell, no referrals were made to the SRA, and it remains to be seen following this disclosure whether that will now happen or not. The effect on those postmasters and the damage to their lives is truly scandalous, and in-house lawyers and local government lawyers need to be mindful every day of their duty to the rule of law and speaking truth to power, not to mention following applicable CPR rules and criminal prosecution rules. Now, Dennis, I know you are going to insist on bringing us back to something more positive and perhaps even happy.
Yes, indeed. Well, according to the estate agent's Rightmove, Richmond upon Thames is the happiest borough in the UK. So let's see why. There might even be some key takeaways here to present to your next corporate management team. Richmond upon Thames is home to London's largest Royal Park, as well as other big-hitting tourist attractions such as Kew Gardens and Hampton Court. Now, the borough of Richmond is in southwest London, if you didn't know, and has been named the happiest place to live in Great Britain. It received the accolade from property website Rightmove, which runs a Happy at Home index, where it asks residents how they feel about their area based upon 13 happiness factors. And this is the first time that a London location has taken the top spot. Last year, St Ives in Cornwall topped the table, and in 2021, it was the market town of Hexham in Northumberland. I know it well. But back to Richmond. Its residents scored it highly for feeling a sense of belonging to the area and being comfortable to be themselves, as well as its access to nature and green spaces. About half the borough is parkland, as well as the vast Richmond Park with its ancient woods and historic herds of deer. There is Bushy Park, Hampton Court Park, Old Deer Park, the Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew, and the London Wetland Centre in Barnes. And the Thames runs for more than 10 miles through the entire borough. Richmond upon Thames has long been a favourite retreat for royalty, as well as the rich and famous, and you arguably need to be pretty wealthy to be able to afford to live there now. The current average asking price for a home in the borough is just shy of £1 million. Well, I get the picture. And incidentally, my hometown was in the headlines the other week, Stockton-on-Tees. Helen.
I'm sure also a very happy place to live, Dennis. Well, I rented a shared flat in Richmond when I was a trainee solicitor, Dennis, and I have to say, yes, it was absolutely lovely. Expensive, but lovely. And I would question the average price for a home. To put it into context, an average 3-bed Victorian semi-detached house will set you back 4.5 million. You could, however, purchase a car parking space for just under 200,000. Now then, Dennis, I've got 3 Christmas-themed questions around the law for you, and I'd like to thank and credit Osborne, Morris and Morgan solicitors, as this is taken from their website. And if you're interested in Christmas legal quizzes, then you can take a look at their website because they've got a lot more than this. So, number 1. Do you think, Dennis, it's illegal for pawnbrokers to open on Christmas Day?
Interesting one. My instincts lead me to think probably it is illegal, but I don't know anything about the law or the legal provisions concerning this.
Well, it would have been illegal in 1787 because the Pawnbrokers Act of that year prohibited pawnbrokers from opening for trade on Christmas Day. So if you were gifted with expensive jewellery, you'd have to wait until Boxing Day before you could sell it. But this law no longer stands, however. While many shops do close on Christmas Day, the only time a pawnbroker would be prohibited to open is if it was a very large shop over the size of 280 square meters, which is, of course, the trading law that stops the larger shops opening on Christmas Day. So there you have it. Now, thinking of the Grinch here, could Christmas ever be banned?
Another interesting one. And what it's leading me back to is when I studied English history and Oliver Cromwell and the Puritans, and I'm pretty sure they took quite a hard line over any kind of religious festivals, anything involving people enjoying themselves, they would ban. So I think it could be done, but I don't think even the latest of governments in our country would be tempted to ban Christmas. But yes, I think it's been banned in the past.
Well, I'm really impressed, Dennis, because yes, it has been banned in the past, actually. And I'm of the school of thought that if ever there's a history question, and you don't know the answer, if you just say Oliver Cromwell, the chances of being right are probably quite high, because in 1647, after the English Civil War, Oliver Cromwell did indeed ban all types of festivities, including the celebration of Christmas, and that law wasn't lifted until 1660. So there you have it.
Gosh, wow.
Now, some of you might be looking forward to a pantomime this Christmas season, but is it illegal to throw sweets to a pantomime audience, Dennis?
Well, I would have thought surely not. This takes my memory straight way back to Dick Whittington, the first ever pantomime that I saw, and I can remember distinctly Cliff Richard throwing a bag of sweets at me and everyone else. So if he can do it, yes, it can't be illegal.
Well, I remember a period of time when in fact pantomimes did stop throwing out sweets to the audience because I think there were concerns of hurting audience members and the producers being liable for any injuries. However, recognised health and safety bodies in the UK say that there's nothing wrong in this harmless bit of fun and that the likelihood of hurting an audience member is extremely low. So if you're wondering if you're allowed, the answer is, oh yes, you can. And on that note, you can read more on the items discussed today and many more besides by going to bulletin number 42, available on the LRG website now. Thank you for playing that quiz with me, Dennis. Have a lovely Christmas and a lovely New Year.
And the same to you. All the very best. All the best, everyone.